Good evening and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen Workshop. It is January 29th, 2026 at 5:30. The prayer will be with Alderwoman Haas. I will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone should have minutes from the January workshop and regular meeting. We will have one presentation on Tuesday. Moving on to, and then we will have departmental reports. Moving on to old business, second reading ordinance 2026-01, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2025-2026 general fund budget. This is second reading. Does anyone have any questions about it? Seeing none, we're going to move on to second reading ordinance 2026-02, an ordinance to amend Title II, Chapter 2 of the Vergne Municipal Code regarding the duties of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee and deleting Title II, Chapter 4 of the Vergne Municipal Code regarding the Beautification and Arts Advisory Committee. And this is essentially rolling the Beautification and Arts Advisory Committee into Parks and Recreation Committee. Does anyone have any questions? Next, we're going to go to the consent agenda. We've got approve city bids and purchases. We've got the OMNIA Partners Contract Purchase for Emergency Communications Center Workspace Remodel. And I believe this is the 9 Dell computers. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Okay, wait. This is the remodel of the whole thing, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in reading through it, is Aaron here? I just got a quick question. If this is approved and it starts, where will the people go, or where will the dispatch center go while this is going?
We will go down to Murfreesboro to the Rutherford Emergency Communications District building. They have a backup dispatch that we can fully utilize.
Oh, okay. That was it.
Yeah.
I read this, so you can see I read everything.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. Moving on to B, approve lease rate quote. This is a Ford Transit cargo van for the sewer department. And this is just like it sounds. It's a cargo van for the sewer department. Is there any questions? C, approve amendment number 4 to grant contract number 77833-150 with the State of Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance for the Police Department Recruitment and Retention Grant. This is just updating that grant. There's no financial impact with this. Does anyone have any questions? D, approve professional services agreement with Roby Kitchens appraisal services for the properties affected by the Fergus Interceptor Sewer Project. And again, this is also just like it sounds. Total cost for the 11 tracks is $34,500. Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to E, approve master agreement with VC3 for ThinkGuard backup and recovery services related to the city's Office 365 online environment. And again, this is just like it sounds, nothing fancy. Does anyone have any questions? F, approve an application for the U.S. Department of Justice grant to reduce injury and death of missing individuals with dementia and development disabilities, and authorize the mayor to sign the certification by the chief executive officer of the applicant government for this grant. That is a whole lot of wording, but it's a grant that could award us up to $150,000 over the course of 36 months for some very specific uses dealing with public safety. Does anyone have any questions?
Has anything like this ever been presented to us before?
Not that I'm aware. Any other questions? Okay, we're going to move on to new business. Ordinance, our first reading, ordinance 2026-03. An ordinance to amend Title VII and Title 12 of the Vergne Municipal Code to adopt the following standard codes: the 2024 International Fire Code, the 2024 International Building Code, the 2024 International Plumbing Code, the 2024 International Fuel Gas Code, the 2024 International Energy Conservation Code, the 2024 International Mechanical Code, the 2024 International Residential Code, the 2024 Property Maintenance Code, and the 2024 International Existing Building Code, and to amend Title 13 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding property maintenance regulations. That is a mouthful. Curtis, do you want to come explain all of that?
Good afternoon, everyone. I can help you with the fire code. I'll need my counterpart, Mr. White, to assist with the majority of that, as that's going to be in his wheelhouse and not ours. But I'll happily answer any questions pertaining to the fire code adoption.
As far as any drastic changes from where we previously adopted?
No, sir. So any changes that you see in the document that we provided to Mr. Richardson is only verbiage change because of the chapter changes within the fire code itself. So if you remember, a few months back, we presented the permit section, and moving forward with fire permitting, those are the changes that you see from where the chapter numbers have just shifted slightly. So no significant changes. The same appendices are requested to be adopted that we already had. I reviewed significant changes from 2018 to 2024. No significant changes. If anything's expanded, it's more of the hazardous materials chapter. It's become more detailed in some of the enforcement aspects and what we're looking for. But anything pertinent that would affect the city, no, sir.
Okay. Joe, what about for you?
Come back there.
Either one.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of significant changes on the building and mechanical, plumbing, fuel, gas codes either. It's all, and a lot of the language was changed around to match state language where the state's already adopted some of their code language. So this was done in coordination with Rutherford County, the city of Smyrna, the city of Murfreesboro. We all met regularly. We hosted the Home Builders Association at the Rutherford County Codes building. They hosted. So we've been meeting for several months, and the language, a lot of the amendments there are just to match the language that some of the other jurisdictions are doing, but no drastic changes. Energy code stays the same. The sprinklers are opted out, so nothing, no drastic changes.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you both. Moving on to number 9, first reading ordinance 2026-04, an ordinance to amend Title 9, Chapter 9 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding mobile food truck vendors. And this all came out of conversation from last month. And so you've got this in front of you. Thoughts, changes, suggestions, now would be the time.
The only thing that I think we all agree that we're not out to run anybody off, but at the same time we got to take care of our looks of our city, and if we can help it. But the only department that I think we might have missed on this that I'd just like to get their thoughts, maybe Curtis would probably be the guy to go to here, is as far as I'm assuming you go out and check all their propane and vents and fire things and all of that. Have you come across anything that would stick out in your mind that had problems with, or?
No, sir, not directly. So the way the process with the fire inspections work is in order for them to obtain an active city food truck permit, they have to obtain a fire inspection through our office. From that point, they're redirected back to the codes department where they finish up any inspections that they have and they obtain their permit. As far as yearly inspections are concerned, they're not considered a commercial business from the aspect where the fire inspectors go out pre-assigned and conduct those yearly inspections. The only time that we put hands on those is when they go to file for another yearly permit, which would then require them to again come and get a new fire inspection. The state has also introduced something that would keep us hands off from a lot of food trucks. So the state of Tennessee has now passed a regulation to where if the state fire marshal's office conducts a mobile food vendor fire inspection, then that's a blanket cover for any fire department, to where they could technically come into our city from that point, produce a state fire marshal's food truck inspection, and would be eligible for a permit. And that's nothing that we can change on that, from my understanding. That's something that the state of Tennessee has acted, and we must abide by that. Now, through my history, the majority of our food truck vendors do not go that route because they are solely here located within our municipality. So it would be irrelevant for them. That's really good for those that are coming to events, festivals, and are traveling across the state or within a local area. But as far as encountering any specific issues, none that would be enforceable by the fire code, Vice Mayor. Now, professionally speaking, you do have some that I can tell you that are not mobile that we see, that are currently being used as a permanent kitchen for a brick and mortar store, so to speak. So I personally would not think the fire code would interpret that as a mobile food truck. So if anything that we could look at is that, then in my mind becomes a permanent cooking facility that's just on an axle because it's not movable. So if anything, we could look at how the fire code would interpret those specific vendors. But any one particular standout violation, we don't see anything in particular.
And how often does, I know there's a requirement, but is there other than the requirement, how often does the fire yourself go out and check these things? Once a year?
We inspect them once they renew their permit. So we do not go out to the physical locations and re-inspect them yearly. That's their requirement to come to us.
Could.
Yes, sir, we could, 100%.
Okay. Legally could.
Yeah, 100%, because there are some aspects within the food trucks that are correlated directly with a normal restaurant that would require multiple inspections throughout the year. So, for example, their hood systems, suppression systems, they fall under the same standard as a normal brick and mortar restaurant would. So, every 6 months, certain systems have to be checked versus yearly. So the concept would be we show up, they've been checked every 6 months. They're responsible for getting those same systems checked and monitored, and then once they file for the permit, we would go back in and check again for another yearly inspection. But yes, by the letter of the code, we could go in every 6 months and verify that they are having their systems checked by a professional, they're being tagged, they're in service, and they're clean the way they're supposed to be.
That's all I got for
Yes,
here.
sir.
And I do want to ask Joe some questions.
Does anyone else have anything for me?
Yeah, going back to what you said, like a mobile or a kitchen on an axle, does this, Evan?
Yeah.
Does this cover those also?
I'm so sorry. I was answering an email. I apologize. So,
So, and
I should have been doing, but yeah. I probably belong in the corner over there now.
if I may, ma'am, what I was saying, sir, is we do have, I was asked if we have any violation that may stand out more so than others with mobile food vendors. There's no specific violation that stands out. However, I have questioned the interpretation of the fire code, what a mobile food vendor, the intent of that particular code is trying to enforce. In my mind, that is a truly mobile food vendor, something that moves, is capable of being moved, or may move on a regular basis. And it may be something that we render an interpretation from the International Code Council on, what their thoughts on that is. But I do know that we have several what we classify currently as mobile food vendors that are not mobile. And I, professionally speaking, I don't even know if it would be hard pressed for them to be moved. Some of them are actually associated with a brick and mortar. For example, we have one that I know of that their food truck is the kitchen for the building itself. So you and I would go in, we would order our food. At the sit-down aspect of it, it's being prepared from a mobile food trailer and then brought in.
Except it's fixed.
Except it's fixed.
Yeah.
I think that's answered, though, with this change, because it says daily removal required. So at the end of each day, it has to be removed. So I know what you're talking about.
Yes,
No,
sir.
this doesn't really
And
address
forgive me,
it, but
sir, I'm
if
not
you've got to
familiar
remove
with,
it.
I'm
then-
not familiar with the changes
Yeah.
that y'all have made. So if that is the case, then yes, I would suspect from my dealings with some of the food trucks that we have, they're not being removed every day. Actually,
No.
I don't know of any of them that are except
None
for
of
one.
them are that I know of.
Yeah.
So those that are, like you said, the kitchen for the brick and mortar, are they on an axle and on wheels?
Yes,
so
ma'am.
they would have to be removed on a daily basis. And if they're in the commercial area, where this, it's stating that food trucks won't be in commercial areas, is that going to kick them out then, or?
Now, again, I'm not trying to pass things to Joe. I'm only capable of enforcing what the fire code states. And the fire code is only there for safety measures.
I'm
things
hitting
of
both,
that-
but I'm hitting all three.
Yes,
of them.
ma'am.
It would remove the food truck portion of it. If it's a restaurant and it came in as a restaurant, then it should have its own kitchen. If they have basically changed that area to be more sitting and are trying to use a food truck for all their cooking, that food truck would have to be removed daily.
Okay, that's what I mean.
And going back to your commercial question, it states in here that food trucks shall not operate within any commercial zoning district. So
therefore,
yes,
it's
if
their mobile kitchen for their brick and mortar,
On-
they
on-
can't be.
yeah, on them it doesn't matter if they move it at the end of the day or not. They can't be there in the first place.
Okay.
So-
I was just wanting clarification because when he said a mobile or a kitchen for a brick and mortar,
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's
Well, yeah, I know, but
a
I
food
just
trailer.
wanted-
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
I wanted some clarification on it.
Now, I can tell you from the fire marshal and fire inspector aspect, we have no problem assisting with these. From my understanding, and it may be something that Mr. Richardson and attorneys want to look at, I don't think we have the ordinance that supports fire inspectors conducting those type of inspections and enforcing that. So, for example, right now, if this new ordinance is passed, if we go out and we can obviously tell that this apparatus has not been moved, we would have to contact our codes partners and say, hey, you're going to have to come out and do that.
So, Carol, it ends up getting enforced more like a zoning ordinance enforcement would be, which would fall under that, rather than a health safety, which is what Curtis is saying.
Yes.
Well, I know, but it was kind of like I was putting all three of y'all
Yeah.
in the circle.
Yes, ma'am.
Not to hit
No,
anything
no,
on
you're
you.
fine.
Thank you, Curtis.
Yeah.
That
Any
was
other questions?
Any more?
Can we give them the authority to shut it down?
Well, we would have that, Joe would have that authority, for example. We wouldn't need Curtis to do that because it would be more of a zoning ordinance. Like if somebody's operating an industrial use in an R1 zone, that would be a zoning ordinance violation. This is akin to that. So we have all the enforcement authority that we need. I don't know if Curtis wants to be involved in that or not, but.
I think the partnership that we have now with our codes department, we've worked very fluently together. If we have an issue that pops up that we know to be a codes issue, I contact Mr. White. Normally, before we leave, he's sending someone out to address it, and vice versa. If his inspectors show up and it's a clear fire code violation, they contact us and we go out. So as far as if we had enforcement, I don't think it would really change the circumstances that we're facing right now.
Any other questions for Curtis?
Looks like Joe's going to be busy, or his team's going to be busy.
That's okay.
That's okay. Hey, job security.
Job security. That's right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Curtis.
Yes, sir.
So, Joe, you was not here because you were sick. From a codes perspective, how much dealings have you had, or phone calls or whatever, complaints about these things?
This time of year, not as much, but in the summer months, the spring and summer months, we get a lot of complaints. We notice a lot of things, illegal signage. They often want to put outdoor furniture, and to give it a more permanent look, I guess. To echo what Mr. Brinkley was saying, these are supposed to be mobile food vendors, and a lot of them have become permanent, sort of a permanent business that sits in the same location, and we run into issues like tables and furniture, awnings, and signs, trash, that type thing. It becomes more prevalent in the summer months, the complaints.
Yeah, I think Kyle said it best last time when he talked about how one of them showed up 5 years later. They're still here, but one of the things that I read over in this, and I just like to get the board's thoughts, because we don't want to be as harsh as we probably could be by law if we really wanted to be. It says daily removal required. If they find a spot in an industrial area that is okay and doesn't disagree with the law, I don't see that they need to move every single day. Maybe if we could make it to where, I don't know, every 2 weeks so they could clean up around it or something. Is that a little far-fetched? Or just wanted to get your all's opinion.
It'd be hard to enforce because we'd have to sticker that, hey, it wasn't moved on. We'd pretty much have to go out there every day and say it ain't been moved on this day, and then it'd be very hard to enforce.
So it would be better to leave it like it is every day?
I think that encapsulates the purpose of it being mobile food truck. It's not a permanent location or a long-term location.
Okay.
It's my experience that a lot of these mobile food vendors that do it the right way, they have these long-term agreements with these businesses and these locations where they come to the same spot daily, and it's an agreement, and that seems to work well for a lot of the mobile food vendors.
And making it move daily, that makes sure it's mobile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, this is not going to affect any of the events like we have at the park and stuff when the food trucks come in? And
no,
I just want to make sure that...
Not to my knowledge of the language of the proposed changes. I don't think that...
The only thing I would think of is if you had a carnival, do you call that a mobile food vendor whenever they come in and set up for the 2-3 days, because it'd be sitting in the same spot, not moving?
Do we issue...
I don't
Dave,
think
this is a question for you. Do we issue special event permits?
Carnival brings their own vendors.
Yeah.
Food vendors, so we don't deal with outside food trucks during those events. We don't issue permits for anybody to operate a food truck on city property unless it is city.
Okay.
So with the carnival coming in, because that's a 3-day event or whatever, they don't have to move. Would they have to move their vehicles, or?
That's a good question, perhaps for legal, but in my professional opinion, that would fall under like a special event.
I mean, I think that's a really good point. Actually, I think that may be, if that's a concern, I think that may be something we want to take a look at, because that may be an exception or a carve out that you want to make. I think that's a really good point.
I would think the carnival, because we contract it, we bring it in, would be a city event. We do all the promotion with it as basically a fun event for our residents for 3 days. So,
but I think, like Evan's saying, we just need to put some language in here because we need to follow our own rules. That's what we get complaints all the time is, well, the city don't want to follow their own rules; they just want to make the rules. So I think carving something out would be the best
Yeah,
scenario.
with your permission, we'll just come up with some language that'll have a carve out for that scenario where it's a city event, a carnival, things like that.
City sanctioned events.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds good. Good job, Jason.
So we talked a little bit last time about food truck events. I'm curious, I guess David would probably know, was how long from start to finish does it take to get a permit for a food truck if they wanted to get one?
That'd probably be more a governance question, because, yeah, we don't deal with any other firm. That'd be another Joe question.
Joe?
So it's a pretty simple process. They make application, and then we go out to the site and make sure they meet the requirements of the ordinance, and then we approve the permit. I sign it. They pay, and it's a yearly permit. It's an annual permit. Lasts for a year.
Because we'd talked a little bit about maybe having a food truck event to where food trucks come out, but I don't want it to make it to where it's almost impossible for them to jump through all these hoops to get to that point. That probably doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about, but I'm just curious, being we're sitting.
It's a fairly simple process. They apply, and we just go do an on-site inspection, and it's a pretty quick process.
And then one thing for the board, if the board does choose to move forward with adopting this, the current permits would be allowed to run till their expiration. This would not make the existing permits null and void. It would just mean whenever it's time for theirs to expire, if it's in a commercial area, it would not be able to be renewed at that location.
That is correct. If this ordinance passes, if the language passes, then any of those that are in these commercial zones, they would not be able to renew their permit. They would have to show that their permit would be based on them moving to an approved location.
So this is first reading. We come back Tuesday, we vote on it. Let's say that it passes. We come back next month, we vote on it, and it passes. Then now what?
So from there, they basically look through their permits. They would see, as they're expiring, they have those conversations with those people, and then if they find people not in compliance, codes takes its normal codes compliance action of citing them, notifying them, and then if it's not removed from the property, then it comes to city court, and then it progresses from there.
That's correct.
All right.
Any other questions?
So, Evan, can you get the city-sanctioned special events in there before Tuesday night?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay. Moving on to Resolution 2026-04, resolution to amend the employee handbook. This is something we do every year, and you can see the highlighted reviews as far as the items that are being updated or changed. Andrew, do you want to hit on any of them?
Sure. I was going to take after Fire Marshal Brinkley and just ask Joe to go ahead and cover it for us. But, I won't do that.
Joe?
I just want to point out that employee handbooks are a continual conversation among municipalities, and I will say that with your approval multiple times a year, we really do, I think, a good job of staying on top. There's a lot of municipalities that don't necessarily do this. And, the reason you have a handbook is because it provides the best opportunity for the employee to have the best experience at work. So in 2022, we presented to you a complete comprehensive overview, and we did that again this year. So in your packet is a summary sheet of the major changes that we made or that we're recommending to be made to you in this handbook. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have anything that you'd like to know more about any of those highlighted sections.
Anyone have any questions? Not a incredibly long list of items, but definitely impactful. Thank you, Andrew. Moving on to Resolution 2026-05, a resolution to accept the Uptown subdivision, Lot 1 of the Richland South LLC property located at 5343 Murfreesboro Road. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on October 28, 2025. And this is for the Aldi's lot, I believe, if I'm remembering that. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Resolution 2026-06, a resolution to approve a land acquisition policy for additional real property interests needed for the South Waldron Road widening project. And again, this is just like it sounds. This is just adding real property for the South Waldron Road widening project. Does anyone have any questions?
Where are we at with all that?
We're acquiring Phase 1 and 2, and of course, this is appraisals for Phase 3. So we've probably about 10 or 15. It's closed, probably 10 or 15 in condemnation, and probably another 10 or 15 that's in negotiations that will either be closed or in condemnation probably in the next week or two.
I can tell you, I believe myself, well, I know myself, and I believe Alderman Hobbs just signed some checks yesterday on some closures. So, and that would be for Phase 1.
5 or 6 tracks that were sent, 6 today.
Any questions? Resolution 2026-07, a resolution of the City of Laverne Board of Mayor and Aldermen to declare property owned by the city to be surplus to the city's needs and directing disposal of the same. This is, again, normal stuff that we do. This is bucket truck, pickup truck, motorized sprayers, 65-gallon tank, various items, minivan, and a Ford Escape. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, moving on to resolution to acquire interest in real property for the Fergus Interceptor Sewer Project. And again, this is just like the Waldron Road one, where we're acquiring property with this sewer project. Does anyone have any questions? Next, we've got the appoint or remove board and committee members. First one we've got is the Board of Zoning Appeals. We've got one term that expired, and or it will expire on the 31st, and that's Brett Windrose, who was just appointed. So he was recently appointed to that. He would like to remain on there, so if anyone is welcome to apply for that board. Any questions on that? Next, we've got the Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals. We've got one term that is expiring, which is Felicia Anderson. This will be advertised on social media, and if we get any other applicants, that will be added to the agenda. She does wish to remain on this board. And then, last but not least, we've got the Laverne Housing Authority. We've got Deborah Hardings that expired in November, and she does wish to remain on this board. So this will be advertised, and if anyone would like to apply, they can. And then, last but not least, we've got the presentation of the compensation study.
So just as a reminder to you, the board, you graciously approved us going out and reviewing compensation. And we partnered with BTA and Associates, who the city has worked with for probably nearly 2 decades, on and off. And what we're presenting to you tonight is the findings of that study. Just some precursors, and then I'm going to have Beth Thompson come up and walk through the presentation. It's marked as a discussion item only simply because we want to bring you the information that you asked us to go get. Mm-hmm. This information will need to go to budget next, which that process is beginning in a few weeks. And ultimately, we'll come back to you within the budget for adoption. It wouldn't necessarily be a standalone. Tonight, we'll be able to answer questions on the study, and then obviously following the discussion tonight, each of you individually could talk to Bruce if you had questions or thoughts on anything different from what the study showed as we get ready to present that to the budget team to look at. So I'm going to ask Beth Thompson to step up to the podium. Beth and Steve Thompson, spelled differently, both last names spelled differently, obviously are well familiar with the city of Laverne, and Beth has been working with me and Kyle and Bruce over the last number of months. We also incorporated each director into these conversations to hear what they needed, would like to see done in their respective departments. And so all of that information was considered when we finalized the study. So I'll have Beth walk you through the slides.
Thank you, Andrew. And thank you for having me this evening. I am Beth, and my colleague Steve is here as well. And Steve has been working with the City of Laverne for, as Andrew said, quite some time, at least 15 years, if not more. Under the previous name of our firm was Burris, Thompson & Associates. You might be more familiar with that. We've just shortened it to BTA for ease of communication. We work with pretty much 100% public sector employers throughout the state. All across the state, we work with cities and counties, some school systems, some public utilities. So 100% of our work is public sector employers. So that's our specialty. What we're going to go over this evening is our process in how we conducted the study, what we found, our recommendations, and the results should those recommendations be approved through the budgets, and then, of course, a Q&A. So the way we go through our compensation studies, we go through a job analysis, compile market data for all of the jobs, analyze that, develop a pay structure, or revise the existing pay structure depending on what both the client wants and what is necessary. Sometimes when we come in, the pay structure is kind of in a shambles and we need to start from scratch. That was not the case with yours, but that's sometimes necessary. We determine recommendations for employee adjustments based on the data that we come back with, and we'll review pay policy. I don't know that was necessary because it's been done many times over the past, but we'll do that as well for our clients. With the job analysis, the first thing we do is we have a kickoff meeting with the management, the city management and HR director. So we worked with Bruce and Kyle and Andrew to talk about what are the objectives for this study, what do we want to accomplish, what are the pain points, what kind of things do we need to really focus on before we move forward with the rest. From that point, we made sure we had all of the current job descriptions, and we had department head meetings. In those, what we like to do is go through the org chart with each department head, because like I said, what we do, 100% of our work is with public sector employers. So we're very familiar with cities and counties and how they operate and what kind of jobs you usually have. But every single one is set up just a little bit differently, and so people wear a little bit different hats, and we want to know our clients as well as we can and know their jobs as well as we can. So we sit down with the department heads to go through the structure to understand all of the jobs as well as we possibly can, because we use a market-based approach and we match the jobs to our databases, and we want to make sure we understand the jobs we're matching. If we don't, then it all blows up. The objectives of this study were agreed to at the start, and we wanted to make sure we included all full and part-time jobs and all employees. We want to ensure that the city's pay plan continues to position the city to attract and retain individuals with the best skills and abilities to provide the services that it needs. Ensure the employees are classified in the appropriate job title for the work being performed. Determine pay adjustments needed to mitigate any pay compression between employees and their supervisors. And review the current use of stipends and see if we need to make any changes to those. We worked with Andrew and the administration team to take a look at the group of public sector benchmarks. Steve and I conduct every 2 years a statewide salary survey. We're the only ones that do this. It's a public sector salary survey where we get all of as much from as many as we can, at least about 100 different cities and counties throughout the state and a few outside of the state, where we solicit their data and we put it all together and we publish it. What we do for each client is we narrow that down to a specific client-focused group of benchmarks that are your direct labor market competitors and some that are a little further out that make sense as appropriate demographic comparators. We use that group for your public sector benchmarks to get data for each of your jobs. We also use a business and industry database because you don't only compete with other cities and counties for employees. You compete with the private sector as well. So we use a business and industry database. It's called Economic Resource Institute, the Salary Assessor. It has over 17,000 jobs in it. We can match almost every job in the city to at least 1 or 2 jobs in that database, with the exception of your certified police and fire. Those are not going to be in that database because they aren't in the private sector. So what we do is we pull the private sector number from the business and industry database. We focus down to the local area, and we've projected all of our data to July 1st so that as soon as you implement this, you aren't going to be immediately behind. We combine the private sector general business and industry database numbers with the public sector benchmark group. We're using the 50th percentile market median for all of our numbers. We're averaging those together and getting what we call a job market rate. And what you need to understand with a market rate is that is not considered a start rate for a job. It is typically representative of someone who's been in the job for 5 to 7 years. So that's where we want people to get in a few years. That's not where we want to start them on day one. This is an experienced person. And we get that for every job. So after we've done that for every job, we take a look at where all those jobs are with your current pay steps. What we found is all of your jobs today are about 8.3% below the current market rates. That means every job, putting them in your job table, on average, about 8.3% below. When we look at all of the employees and where their salaries are, they're about 10.7% below the market rate. Now that does not mean that everybody needs instantly a 10.7% raise, because you have new hires that should be below. Just want to make that a little clear. So we need to adjust the pay structure and some increase to employees, but not necessarily that. Because remember, the market rate is for an experienced individual. This is where your employees stand on average compared to the market rate. We calculate what's called a salary market index. What that means is we take their current salary, divide it by the market rate for the job, and that gives us a percentage that we call the index for every job. You can see that 37% of your employees are currently less than 85% of the market rate. Now that is not ideal. 49% are somewhere between 85 and 100%, and that is okay. And then 14% or 100% or greater, and those folks are doing great. So what this shows us is that we need to do a little bit of work with your salaries. So our recommendations, first of all, what we would recommend is a 9% increase to your overall pay grades. What that means is we recommend taking the whole thing and just increasing all of the numbers 9% across the board. Now, obviously, this is subject to approval with the budget and everything, so that's, going to happen down the road, we hope. But the biggest impact here will be to the starting pay rates for when you hire new employees. People that are already in the table, they're already in their jobs, they already are within those steps. But what's going to happen is you'll be more competitive when you're hiring new employees. We've reviewed the jobs and the pay grade assignments, and we're recommending moves to a higher pay grade for 23 jobs that we believe, based on the market data, are slotted a little too low in the current pay grades. So with those changes, that will make a big difference for those jobs and put them where they need to be with the market rates. And we also are recommending some expansion and creation of some new job titles. And this is after working with several of the department heads and talking with Andrew and the administration on a few of these jobs. This is to make some hierarchy for career development in some of these positions, where right now you have a single level for a job, and so all of your employees, that regardless of their talent, their skill set, any of that, it's all considered one, but the best practice might be to separate it where you've got the new entry-level person with no skills comes in, then they get certified or they learn new skills and they can move up in a progression. And so you can have 2 or sometimes 3, maybe 4 levels of position, and it gives those employees some real progression to look forward to in their career and opportunities for improvement. With the salary and with the employees with the pay structure adjustment, all employees would receive, if this is all approved, at least a 9% increase. That's the minimum for any employee. On average, across the board, there would be an 11.4% increase for employees, but the minimum that anyone would receive is 9%. Not everyone is going to get the 11.4, but everyone would get 9. Then as we said, we were going to look at stipends and certification pay. In the police department, we recommend these stipends are common with the benchmark group and other employers, and we feel like that these are important to continue. Field training officer, communications training officer, and your lead dispatcher, those are currently receiving $1 an hour for those positions or those additional duties, and it makes sense to continue to do those. But some things that we might recommend changing.
Beth, before you move on.
Whoops.
You can just go back to that slide.
Yes, sir.
That actually should say SWAT, CTO, and lead dispatcher. I just noticed that FTO is part of the recommendation for the police officer 2 position that you're about to talk about. So the stipend continuation would be recommended on SWAT, CTO,
not
and lead.
FTO. Oops.
Correct. Correct.
That's right. I apologize for that error.
That's why it's a workshop. We can work through it.
At this point in time, a couple of these, the Northwestern and FBI National Academy, are receiving a per hour stipend, but the recommendation is to change that to those employees would receive a one-step increase upon completion of any of these. The bottom three already receive a one-step increase, but the Northwestern and FBI National Academy are receiving an per hour amount. And we would recommend to just change that to once they finish that particular course, they get a one-step increase and move on.
This is a practice that we already put into place with other certifications. I'll use CMFO as an example. When an employee completes a CMFO certification, if they're in the finance department, they receive a two-step increase upon completion. And if they're outside of the finance department, they receive a one-step increase. So it's a one-time bump in their step. Obviously, that progresses on as they continue and as pay changes are made, but it is not a continual hourly rate that they get. And so encompassing that idea, it was being proposed that we take the Northwestern and the FBI stipends and position them as step increases as opposed to ongoing hourly rates.
And as Andrew implied a moment ago, we're recommending a new distinction between a Patrol Officer 1 and Patrol Officer 2. Patrol Officer itself right now is in grade H, and so Patrol Officer 1 would stay in grade H. But a difference that we would make is that instead of starting a new uncertified officer in step 1 in that pay grade, on the new scale, we would start this new officer at step 4, which would, as you can see, would be $29.37 an hour on the new scale. Then, once that officer has achieved or completed both post-training and field training, that officer would then get another step. A new hire that is already a certified officer would start at step 6. And then they would progress along the steps after that, both of them. So this would be a fundamental change in the way you're doing your hiring for your police officers in patrol.
We had lots of conversations with Chief Mays to identify how to not only retain, which is a really important part of compensation, is retention of people, but also the attraction piece. And Beth mentioned it a couple slides ago, moving the pay grade 9%. We have, in my years here, we have both raised the pay scale periodically by 3%, give or take. But more than that, we have increased people's steps as you have approved raises. What that has resulted in is folks like police and fire, as an example, that are potentially more competitive in the marketplace to hire. And we've had lots of conversations, I think, about police rates at other municipalities and even THP, where they start people out, is that our base pay for hiring remained low while we gave existing employees raises. It didn't address that starting rate. And so through lots of conversations and talking, we felt like this proposal accomplished both of your goals of retention and attraction, meaning that we would alter our hiring process in steps, if that makes sense to you.
And this is a very competitive new hire rate.
And if I may add one other thing, we're also looking at changing how we do it in the future. So if we do cost of living increases in the future, instead of increasing everybody by one step, we would increase the entire scale by 3%, whatever you guys vote on for that cost of living amount. So it's a fundamental change there when it comes to future cost of living increases. That way, that bottom rate for where we're hiring somebody would continue to go up as we make those changes each year.
Existing employees, are, especially in the police department, since we're on that slide, are going to see this and go, okay, well, what does that mean to me? And that portion of the study is addressed much later in the budgeting process when we go line by line and address tenure and compression and all the things that we go specifically by the person. This part of the study doesn't deal with people, it just deals with the position.
This is more high level versus individualized.
Correct.
So then, as we move on, we propose a patrol officer 2, which would then be a promotional opportunity for our police officers, moving to grade I. For this level, the employee would need to attain and maintain at least 2 additional assignments. They would have to be an FTO, and then at least one other, such as the chant, firearms, or some other certification that the chief identifies. So they have to have a minimum of 2 of those. And this would be a minimum of a 6% promotional increase when they achieve this from the patrol officer 1 salary that they're at, based on your promotional policy. So the big question of the day, I'm sure, is what does this cost and what are the results? So the increase to all employees for the pay structure adjustment is just under $2.4 million. Now, it says there are some police department policy adjustments, and what I need to tell you about that is there are 17 officers that are patrol officer 1 that would need to be moved up from their current step of 1 or 2 to move to step 4 so that they would not be moved past by new hires. They would be at least, so they would be up to step 4. And then you have 1 employee that meets the qualifications today for patrol officer 2, and he would be moved up, or she, I don't know if it's he or she, would be moved up to patrol officer 2. So that is what the $120,000 is for that.
And that number is probably going to fluctuate a little more as Chief continues to work on ideas for what would constitute valid assignments and certifications. It really expands what he can do versus what our current plan is that have very set approved stipends. It expands the opportunities that he can have for assignments or additional certifications that would allow folks to have that promotion opportunity. So as more people become eligible for that, even between now and, say, July, that number would fluctuate.
True. And I'll continue to work with Andrew on, keeping those numbers up to date as that happens. So the total salary adjustments currently projected is $2.5 million, with payroll taxes and the retirement plan costs on top of that is $471,000. So you'd be looking at just under $3 million, at $2.98 million for all of that. And that is just moving everybody up to the new pay scale, not adding a step. It's just going from where they are today on the current pay scale to the new one. So what that does is it moves the salary market index we talked about a little while ago, the average for the city, to 100.1%, and about half of your employees would be somewhere between 91.5 and 107.3. And on that chart that I showed you earlier, it gets rid of almost all of the less than 85% individuals. That 2%, I can tell you that half of that number consists of 3 vacancies. And the other 3, it is where what we do is the market rate becomes the proxy, or the market step in your pay system becomes the proxy for the market. And sometimes that's just a little low, a little high, depending on where it falls. So it's just a tad below 85% for the step 1 on a couple of jobs. It's not necessarily the end of the world there. So they're very, very close.
What I want you to see in this slide is moving red to blue helps with retention.
Absolutely.
Because we're not battling, I can go over here and make $1 more, I can go over there and make $5,000 more. We're addressing it with this inside the study.
Absolutely. You have moved from 14% between 85 and 100% to 57, and that's a vast improvement. So now, if you have any questions, I think you probably already know this, but if anyone reaches the top step in the plan, they receive a lump sum payment as opposed to a new step. So that it would not change. And then, as Bruce mentioned, over time you would just continue to increase the entire structure as appropriate. And what questions can I answer for you?
So you take all those cities that you brought up there, that's where you got all your data as opposed to what we're comparing to them?
That is one.
Not national.
Yes. No, sir. We don't compare you to national numbers at all. We use, in our business and industry database, we narrow that down to local, right here at Laverne and Rutherford County. And then the public sector data we use is that list that the benchmark cities here in Tennessee from our survey. Do you want me to pull that slide back up for you?
No,
Okay.
I'm good. I just wondered.
We want to make sure it's relevant so that it's comparing you to the people that you're actually fighting with for talent, that you're actually competing with to get your employees. Otherwise, it's not relevant to you.
That percentage you gave of 10.7%, I think, that were below market rate. Can you give us the numbers for what's Smyrna, what's Nolensville, or immediately surrounding cities to Laverne?
What, as to where their employee,
as far as how far below market rate they are, or if they're at market rate?
Are you allowed to do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Well, I haven't. That's
you
kind
haven't
of
compared that data.
Well, see, that's kind of more of an individual job thing. Okay. I haven't done the analysis to determine where their entire city is compared to the market that we would use for those cities.
Sure.
So what we do for each job is we pull together all of the individual pay rates for each job, and each job will calculate that market median and calculate that where it is compared to that, your current pay scale compared to that market median.
Sure.
And so that then we average up for your entire city.
So you've not made like a whole analysis on each city?
No, because that would mean
It's
I'd be
just
doing
per
a pay
job.
study for each city. I've done pay studies, and Steve has done pay studies for several other cities, but I haven't done it for Murfreesboro or Nolensville yet. Or we wouldn't be able to do that for every single one just as a survey is concerned. So we get a lot of their data, but it's not we don't go through the whole process that we're going through for you, for them, unless they're asking us to do a pay study, if that makes sense.
The nature of the data is such that if we're targeting the average, you can say that on average, Murfreesboro, Nashville, Rutherford, all the other, we're paying us for the pay. They're not below that. They're not the average. Now, some employees will be able to above, some will be able to below. But we're saying you folks are below that group. But that group as a whole is the average.
Didn't MTAS do something like this with us not too long ago, or am I thinking of something else?
We've not done a pay study through MTAS. They do an annual survey of cities. I've not looked at that data in a little while, but they do an annual survey, but they've not done a pay study for us.
I think you're thinking of the utility rate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
I think you're thinking of the utility rate. It was a couple years ago.
Thinking of something. So up there with those, the money that was brought up, the hourly, and then it calculated out to yearly, does the insurance that we furnish, is it included in, or that's extra?
Great point, and it's one that I try to shout as often as possible, because as far as I am tracking, we're still the only municipality that does what we do and providing 100% coverage to our employees and all their dependents. So, Vice Mayor, what I've done the last couple of years in the annual compensation letter that every employee gets is I've started to make that a total compensation letter. So here's your salary, here's what the city pays in your benefits. That's real dollars that we pay that you're not paying. As an example, if you have family coverage through us, that's $36,000 a year that you're not paying, but we are. So helping employees understand, this is what I take home, this is my total compensation, which includes all my benefits. That is a real game changer when you look at that compared to municipalities around us. And as you can imagine, the younger demographic of people that we hire don't really care as much about benefits. And then folks, in my generation are thankful that we have them, so.
But this looked solely at the salaries. This is not looking at total
Correct.
compensation.
Right.
Not looking at the full retirement package or anything like that.
Correct.
So
Those are all add-ons.
So we're just comparing salaries.
And as a board, you have done incredible work, I would just add, since we started this in 23. Our salary has gone, the basis of every employee's salary in the last 3 years has increased dramatically. And the market has gone a little nuts when we get on the carousel of, plan, what are you increasing? And part of what I said to Bruce and Kyle, and Beth heard this as we were talking about this, is we need to keep the study pretty quiet until we get to the board, because as soon as it's out there, the carousel will begin again when other people realize what is being proposed in Laverne. And I can tell you that what I've heard so far, the proposal here to get our pay scale to be competitive, which is what I think we really need to understand, is significantly more than what is being proposed in other municipalities for this year's budget.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. Younger people want to see the dollar and cents, and us old beat up people, we want
the ones that wake up hurting and we don't know why.
Yeah, but none of that study's involved, and
No.
that money's not even.
That's correct. Over and above everything you just saw.
Any other questions?
So,
No, go ahead.
So, going back to a comment that Bruce made, we as a board, we have increased people's salaries, compensation, but we have not increased the steps or what the pay grade is paying. Is that correct?
For the most part, yes. We have increased individual pay substantially over the years. There have been a few instances where we have increased the pay scale by percentages, but usually in the past, when we've talked about cost of living, it's just increasing our existing employees and left the scale alone. So that's why we're making that fundamental change to moving forward, like when we do a cost of living, that would be for your actual scale.
So, I know with retrospect, in hindsight, if we had done the pay scale like we did the COLA, then would we be in this 9% thing? Or?
I think your employees would still be low compared to other cities because, even increasing our employee pay individually like we have, they're still lower, as you saw in the figures earlier.
I was just trying to get it in my brain.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
If we go back to the slide where you have the 50%, the two civilian and government. Go back to that slide if you would.
Sorry, it's going to take a sec.
That's fine.
Glenn, you can't help her out?
If I knew what slide number it was.
It's
That's
that
it.
one.
That one, yeah.
So,
Yes, sir.
in generalised terms, what happens if you went to 40% on the municipal and 6% on the general business? And that's one. And then the second is, what if you do it the other way around? I'm just trying to get the balance of where this percentage changes dramatically.
And we do have some clients that ask us to weight the municipal side more heavily because typically what you expect to see is that municipal pay rates are lower than private industry. And sometimes it does change those average. It will change the averages. It may not change it as much as you expect. But typically what you would see is if you change the weighting where the municipal average is higher than business and industry, then your market rates will lower a little bit. And if you change it where the general business and industry is weighted more heavily than municipal, then your market rates will go up a little bit. But how much, I can't say without actually doing the math.
Any other questions?
So from what I'm hearing, here in a few months, we're going to have to up our budget $3 million approximately in order to keep up with the Joneses.
That's the $3 million question, yes.
So no pressure, Danielle.
Now, keep in mind, this is spread over three funds. This is not just general fund,
Right.
not just water and sewer. So the full $3 million is not just general
It's
fund.
still $3 million.
It's still
spread
$3
over
million.
10 funds.
Correct.
The bulk of this will, though, be general fund. So it's going to have some fun time with budget.
If I can't believe with like Andrew said, since I've been on this board, we've always kept a pretty good, and plus what the mayor gave here a while back. Had we not kept up with that and done stuff, we'd been 20% below these.
We'd have a lot more job openings than we do right now if we hadn't done that work.
We did, I want to say, either 5 or 6 years of 6%, and then last year was 3%. So, and then we did one in January that was a catch-up.
We did a fire, significant fire increase to firefighters in one. We did a police-only study in the spring of 23, maybe 24.
So all you department heads have got between now and then to cut back on your asking. Let's call it what it is. I mean,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth.
With that, we're going to go to mayor and alderman comments. Alderman Hobbs.
Nothing for this meeting, thank you.
Alderman Coates.
So say thank you for all the staff that did a tremendous job during the winter storm, and let's see what happens this weekend as well.
Alderman Haas.
Now that I can talk, I couldn't talk last meeting, I want to thank police and fire for their support during the food drive and the toy store. It was a tremendous success, and thank you to the Public Works Michael and Doug, for everything that you've done in the last week. I know there's still more work to be done, and it's going to get cold again this weekend, but we really appreciate all that y'all have done. And Box 55 is back online as of today. So they were, due to the weather conditions and stuff, they had gone offline, but now that the roads are clear, then Box 55 is back online.
Vice Mayor, no. Wow.
He talked enough.
Not a peep. Well, I do want to first off thank Public Works, Police, Fire for their diligence through this winter storm that we had. The streets, I've gotten nothing but rave reviews from people. So thank you. Thank your team, Deets. Thank you to our police and fire. I know we had extra people in as well. And we even had a garage fire, so thankfully nobody was hurt. So thank your teams for all that they've done. Do want to thank Miss Donna, our PIO, for her help with our special guests recently. We had Megadeth Day declared in Laverne in January. Vice Mayor No was down there at their concert, rocking it out. But it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to honor their legacy and what they've done in music as they kicked off their final album, as they're doing a final tour for their careers. So that was pretty good. Do want to urge everyone, we've got another Arctic Blast coming in. It's going to go through this weekend, and then there's already more winter mix in the forecast for next week. So please, please, please check on your neighbors. Doesn't matter if they're elderly or not. Please check on them. Make sure that they're okay. If they need any help, if you can help them, great. If you can't, reach out to somebody who can. We still have about 200 households without power. NES, please get here and take care of our residents. I know some of them have been going for 5. Tomorrow will be 6 days without power. So while we've seen some progress as we've come down from 700, let's get the rest of our residents taken care of. If you need help, please reach out to our non-emergency line. If that's the situation, we will get you to the right people and get you taken care of. With that, I'll call this meeting adjourned.